Hello dear guys and girls, welcome back to the channel. I'm Petra. I'm a life coach and an advocate for survivors of narcissistic abuse. I want to touch on the subject today of the shame and the guilt that we all feel when going through relationships with narcissists, when being raised by narcissistic parents, when being in contact with narcissistic friends. There is a lot of shame and guilt that plays into that. So you must understand that fundamentally a narcissist is full of shame, whether that was taught to them through them having narcissistic parents, or whether there were certain circumstances in their young life. Whatever it was, this has contributed to their feeling of shame. And because they have not fully developed empathy, or because they have never developed empathy, this is how it plays into their guilt and their feeling of emptiness. They feel a void, and to cope with this feeling, they take it out on others. So they project on others, they control others so that they have a sense of having some type of control in their lives. This is the main reason why they control others. But they will project that shame and guilt onto you. And this is just a vicious cycle, the guilt tripping and the shaming. So I just wanted to look at both sides there, where it's coming from the narcissist. And it's not to condone their behavior, but it is to shed some light on why they are this way. So when we are on the receiving end as the targets or as the victims, we have that shame and guilt that we can work through. But the narcissist, on the other hand, makes a conscious choice not to work through that, because it is for them so painful to apply introspection, to look at their own behavior and their own actions. And this is the reason why they will never heal that. But the targets and the survivors are absolutely able to heal those very poisonous emotions of shame and guilt. Shame is an insidious form of narcissistic abuse, and shame is used to undermine your self-esteem, to feed the narcissist's superiority, or the feeling of superiority that they have, the feeling of entitlement. They shame you so that they feel better about themselves. And, whatever you want to call the form of abuse, whether it is projection or gaslighting or shaming or belittling or giving the silent treatment, giving anger, it has all got to do with control. That is all they want to do. So the shame is used to undermine you, to project their inadequacies onto you. This is what they also do through shame and guilt tripping. It is showing you that, or trying to make you see that you have no control and no right to your own perception. So this is why it's not usually in the early stages, because in the early stages we want to give the narcissist the benefit of the doubt of the abuse. But it is when you are further into the relationship, you will realize that you doubt your perception. You know you have it, you have your own thoughts, you have your own feelings, but the narcissist again shames you about these thoughts and feelings. And this is when you seriously start to doubt your own perception of the whole situation and of all the abuse that is going on. So the shaming is used to drive you into secrecy, into silence, into fear. And this is why we second guess ourselves. This is why when family or friends or people around us say, something just doesn't feel right with the relationship that you were in, will you tell me what's going on? And because we have been so shamed, we choose to remain silent, to suffer in silence, to put secrecy on abuse. Because we are also pushed into that part of us, that very fearful part of us. And this is why we are afraid to use our voice. We are afraid to speak up. This has all got to do with shaming and guilt. So shame is something you think of shame, it is that there is something wrong with who you are. And when you talk about guilt, there is something wrong with what I have done. So, of course, the shaming is throughout the whole relationship. You will be shamed about your hair, about your clothes, about the way you show up, about your job, about the way you parent, about the way you walk. You know, every single aspect of you will be scrutinized by the narcissist. They will go in to see where your insecurities are. And this is what they will take hold of in order to control you, control and manipulate you. So, shame is something that is taught. We are not born with shame. It is taught. Shame and guilt is taught to us in every aspect of our lives. And this is not just, this is not only true for children who have been raised by narcissistic parents, but it can also be true for someone who was not raised in a toxic home. You know, that society is so soaked with shame and with guilt that, especially when we leave our homes as children, you know, coming from a healthy home, and we go into schools and we start interacting with other children, other adults, shame is very insidious. It can be done in such a subtle way, and sometimes the person who is shaming you is not even aware that they are doing it. They are just doing it from their level of perception, from their level of consciousness. They are sometimes, or maybe even oftentimes, repeating and reenacting what they themselves were taught. So shame is not only derived from dysfunctional homes. I was shamed. I'm not from a dysfunctional family at all, but I was shamed about my weight. I was a very podgy child and a big girl as a teenager. And I was sort of, there were certain digs that were given, not with the intent to hurt me, but with the intent to change my eating habits. So, you know, there's a lot that can be said about that. You know, you can teach your child great eating habits, for example, by way of showing them how to eat healthy, how to move their bodies. But this was done in a way, so the intent from my parents, I realize now, I didn't know then, was to get me to eat healthier and to lose that weight. So I became very self-conscious about my weight, about the way I looked, the way I carried myself, and I would go into secrecy about it. So secretly eat, for example, you know, be very, my way of dealing with that shame was I was a very angry teenager. You know, so if someone gave me a glance on the street that really had no bad intention behind it, but I would sort of use this mask of anger to call them out, or to say, what are you looking at? What are you staring at? You know, that sort of thing. So I was very aggressive in learning how to cope with the shaming. So there comes a point where you have to look at shame, look at guilt, and see where it is suppressing you, where it is keeping you stuck, and how you can release that shame. Because when you release the shame, that is when it is no longer shameful. It has no longer any power over you. You know, so I'm still a big girl. I will never be a very small size, and I don't want to be. I'm comfortable in my own skin. And that is the important thing about shame, is that when you get comfortable with it, when you talk about it and really look at what is the intention behind the shame, that is when you can dissolve that shame. Because bringing something up to the surface, talking about it, takes away its power. And, you know, when you take away that power, there is nothing left to be ashamed of. So that is a very important lesson that I myself learned from shame, is that it is just about, you know, when you start to heal it, it is being okay with how you look, how you sit, you know, in your own skin, how you carry yourself through life. And that is the most important thing. It doesn't have to do with external factors or external people. It has to do with yourself and how you cope with it. So it is, you know, shame and guilt. Shame really breaks fundamental trust. So I just gave an example there of me being raised with shame, or in some aspects of my life, I wasn't raised in shame, but some shame was put onto me. But when you come from a dysfunctional home, when you come from a toxic home, then shame, when that is poured into your brain, poured into your spirit, into your heart at a very young age, it becomes part of who you are, because you don't know any other way. And this shame breaks fundamental trust, the trust between the parent and the child. That trust is broken. Because what does shame do? When you are shamed and guilt tripped from a young age, it is teaching you to feel worthless, to feel inadequate, to feel that you are not enough, to feel that whatever you do and whatever you say is not important. So you are made to feel invisible. It teaches you that you are bad. Shame teaches you that you have no power over yourself, your own life, over your person. It teaches you that you are not capable. So this is what the narcissist recognizes in you. When you have all these feelings about yourself, these thoughts which translate into feelings, which translate into emotions, which translate into how you carry yourself throughout life, this is what the narcissist looks for, and this is what they target. And this is where they pour salt on your wounds. So really, when you are in relationship with a narcissist, what they're actually doing is continuously triggering you, triggering those wounds from childhood, that insecure child. That is who they are attacking, and they know this, and they know how painful it is, and this is their way of controlling you, because you have that feeling of being powerless, of not being good enough, of not being capable, of not having that confidence. This is what they use against you, and this is what they try and keep you in this state of mind, in this frame of mind. This is how they manipulate and control you, because you do not know any other way. And looking at it from the other side, again, when you have not been raised in a dysfunctional home, but you have been taught, or you've heard certain things about yourself through school, through society, through family members, this is when you also have that feeling of not being good enough. And you may even have very low self-esteem. So when you have that low self-esteem, you will feel that you are not allowed or not capable of speaking up and standing up for yourself, or leaving the relationship. This is when we go about seeking outer validation. So we feel really bad about being in a narcissistic relationship, in being abused, of course. And in order to try and heal that feeling, we go about making it about the other person, making it about the narcissist. Again, not condoning their behavior, because yes, you are being abused, but it is also about being brave enough to take responsibility for your life and look inside and see where these feelings of shame and guilt are coming from. And when you bring those to the surface, that is when you can see how to heal that, because it is all about questioning your own shame and your own guilt. Yes, the narcissist's job, that is how they go through life, is to uncover these inner wounds that we have. That is their job, that is their meanness, that is what they do. Your job and your responsibility is to look at that and say, right, where is my shame and guilt coming from? What was told to me as a child, or as a young adult, or as a teenager? What beliefs belong to someone else, which were implanted in my thoughts? And what are my own beliefs? Because shame usually goes hand in hand with believing what the other person has told you. And we ourselves need to take responsibility, because we are keeping that shame alive. We are in fact feeding into it. By not healing those wounds, we are feeding into the shame. And the narcissist knows this, and for them it is very convenient that you yourself feed into this by not standing up for yourself, by not speaking out for yourself. They use this to keep that control of you, because they know that once you realize your worth, realize your own power, that is when you are going to move out of the relationship. And of course, they do not want you to realize this. They want you to feel just as empty, just as hurt, just as angered, just as shamed and guilty as they do. So this is their navigation system. This is their inner guidance system. This is how they will feel alive emotion-wise, by abusing you, by preying on the soft side of you, by preying on your insecurities. This is how they maintain control. So shame and guilt usually get a bad rap in society. But the way to use shame and guilt as a powerful tool is to look at it, to see where that shame is coming from, to question it. Don't just say, yes, I feel ashamed, yes, I feel guilty, and not do anything about it. You have a responsibility to yourself to look at those inner wounds and to clean them out. Because once they have been cleaned out, once you have taken back that power in your life, that is when you are going to feel strong within yourself. You will be standing on a different foundation, on a more powerful and more positive foundation. So don't just give shame a bad rap. Don't just give guilt a bad rap. Give it a chance. Bring it to the surface. Scrutinize it. Say, is this how I'm really feeling? Or are these the feelings that someone planted in me at a very young age? What is mine and what is theirs? And when you realize that, that is when you are going to be able to release the shame, release the guilt. Remember, especially if you are an adult child of a narcissistic parent, that none of this is your fault. This is the stuff that you have been conditioned to believe. These are the thoughts. Remember what I said in a previous video, is that everything in our lives starts with our thoughts. And from those thoughts come the emotions, come the feelings, and these really direct our behavior, direct our actions, direct the way we think about ourselves, the feelings we have about ourselves. And it is really, if you're looking for a healthy relationship, it is very, very important to get back in touch with yourself and get the relationship with yourself to where it is compassionate, it is loving, there is understanding, you have empathy for yourself. When you have that, you will be standing in your truth. You will be standing in courage. And that is when you will be able to hold yourself in high esteem, to walk through life in a different way with a different perspective on things. And when you have that courage and that strength, that is when toxic people will not stand a chance with you. And I am not shaming you. I just want to set that straight. I am not victim blaming, victim shaming. I'm just saying that the stuff that happens in our outer world, our experiences in life, all start with our own thoughts and our own emotions. Because whatever we believe to be true about ourselves, that is the experience that we are actually then confirming when it shows up in our lives. So the same thing is when you change your thought patterns, when you make them more positive and more powerful for yourself, when you believe about the good in yourself and release all the other toxic thoughts that you have in yourself. This is when you will have a different outlook, and this is when a narcissist will stand no chance with you, because when you're strong and courageous, they have nothing to control or manipulate. Thanks again for watching, and again, please leave your comments down here below. Look forward to speaking to you all. Again, I have a waiting list right now for coaching, so please bear with me, and the next coaching dates will be 3 weeks from now. So thank you for understanding that, and again, thank you for all your emails, for all your support. Take care of yourselves, practice self-care, and release every bit of shame and guilt. Bye for now. Have a great Sunday.